The morning air at Range 7 carried the sharp scent of gun, oil, and desert sage. Kira Blackwood stood at the safety line, clipboard in hand, watching 3 young Marines fumble through their pre-qualification checks. Her father's old combat jacket hung loose on her frame, faded and worn at the elbows, but she wore it every day like armor against questions she had no intention of answering. "Check your sight picture," she called out to the corporal struggling with his rifle position. "You're pulling left before you even squeeze." The Marine adjusted, nodded his thanks, fired. The target pinged at 200 meters. "Better," Kira said, marking her clipboard. "Much better." She had been running safety protocols at the Ridgecrest training facility for 11 months now. Civilian contractor work, steady pay, no questions about gaps in her resume. And most importantly, no one expected her to be anything more than the quiet woman who kept the range organized and prevented accidents. It was exactly what she needed after leaving active duty. Simple, invisible, safe. The rumble of diesel engines interrupted her morning routine. 3 black SUVs rolled through the security gate, kicking up dust that caught the early sunlight. Kira tensed without meaning to, her hand instinctively moving to check the radio on her belt. Unscheduled arrivals always meant complications. The vehicles parked near the administration building. Men emerged, moving with that particular swagger that marked them as special operations even before she spotted the Trident insignias. SEALs. Her chest tightened. She forced herself to breathe slowly, counting the exhales the way her therapist had taught her. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have seen military training facilities in your area or know someone who works supporting our Special Operations Forces. Captain Roland Vance appeared from the admin building, his weathered face creased with what might have been annoyance or amusement. Hard to tell with Vance. He gestured toward the range where Kira stood, and the group began walking her direction. She made herself stay still, made herself look professional and unremarkable. Just a safety officer, just doing her job. The man leading the SEAL group was tall, broad-shouldered, with gray threading through his close-cropped hair. His uniform was crisp despite the heat, his bearing radiating authority and something else. Contempt, maybe, or impatience. He surveyed the range like a man inspecting something he had already decided was beneath him. "Commander Hargrove," Captain Vance said as they approached, "this is Kira Blackwood. She runs our range safety operations." Kira, Commander Vincent Hargrove, and his team will be using the facility for specialized training this week. Kira extended her hand. "Commander." Hargrove glanced at her hand, then at her face, then back at Vance without taking it. "This is your range safety officer? A civilian contractor?" "The best we have," Vance said evenly. Hargrove made a sound that was not quite a laugh. "Well, I suppose it is fine for basic operations. We will need the 1,000-meter range cleared tomorrow. Full access. My team has protocols that require, let us say, less supervision. The range requires a safety officer present at all times," Kira said, keeping her voice level. "Facility regulation." Now Hargrove did look at her directly. His eyes were cold blue, assessing and dismissing in the same glance. "I'm sure you mean well, Miss Blackwood, but my men are Navy SEALs. We have been operating in combat zones while you were probably, filing paperwork. We do not need a civilian playing safety monitor." He crawled up Kira's neck, but she held his gaze. "Regulation applies to everyone, sir. No exceptions." Hargrove turned back to Vance. "Roland, can we discuss this somewhere more productive?" Vance gave Kira an apologetic look she pretended not to see. They walked back toward the admin building, Hargrove already talking about requirements and clearances and the inadequacy of civilian support staff. The other SEALs followed, though one of them, a staff sergeant with dark eyes and a thoughtful expression, glanced back at her with something that might have been curiosity. Kira returned to her Marines, but her hands were shaking now. She shoved them in her jacket pockets, felt the worn fabric against her palms, and made herself focus on the present. The range, the job, the simple invisible work that kept her from remembering things she had spent 2 years trying to forget. The next morning brought clouds that sat heavy over the mountains, promising rain that would never come. Kira arrived at the range before dawn, the way she always did, checking equipment and wind conditions while the base was still quiet. Her ritual, her control. The long-range facility was different from the standard qualification ranges. It stretched across 3 miles of desert valley, with target stations set at intervals from 500 meters out to 3,000. The kind of range that existed for precision work, for the patient art of reading wind and elevation, and the 100 invisible factors that turned shooting into something closer to mathematics than luck. She was calibrating the wind sensors at the 1,000-meter line when the trucks arrived. Hargrove's team, plus additional personnel she did not recognize. Officers by their bearing. VIPs by the way everyone else moved around them. Captain Vance was there too, looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. Kira walked back to the control station, where Master Sergeant Owen Reeves was already setting up spotting equipment. Reeves was regular Army, a weapons expert on loan from Fort Benning, and one of the few people at Ridgecrest who treated her like she knew what she was doing. Big day, Reeves said without looking up from his scope. 3-star general flying in from the Pentagon. Hargrove is supposed to demonstrate advanced long-range capabilities for the brass. Show off his team's shooting skills. At what distance? They're talking 2,000 meters. Maybe further if the first rounds go well. Kira frowned, checking her weather readouts. Wind is variable today, gusting between 8 and 15 knots from the northwest. That is going to make 2,000 difficult. Reeves finally looked at her, his expression curious. You shoot much, Blackwood? Not anymore, she said, turning back to her equipment. The demonstration was scheduled for 1,000 hours. By 9:30, the VIPs had arrived. General Patricia Thornhill was a compact woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She stood with Vance and 2 colonels, watching as Hargrove directed his team through their setup. The Barrett 50 caliber rifles came out of their cases like sacred relics. Kira watched from her position at the safety line, clipboard forgotten in her hands. The Barrett was a brutal, beautiful weapon. 30 pounds of precision engineering that could put a round through an engine block at 1.5 miles. She knew its weight, its balance, the way the recoil felt like getting hit by a truck if you did not brace properly. Her hands started to shake again. She forced them still. Hargrove was explaining the demonstration to General Thornhill, his voice carrying across the range. 2,000 meters, General. 5 shooters, 5 targets. We will demonstrate the capability that makes SEAL sniper teams the most effective long-range asset in the military. The general nodded. I am looking forward to it, Commander. The Pentagon is very interested in expanding our long-range programs. Kira checked the wind again. 15 knots now, shifting. She walked over to where Hargrove stood with his lead shooter, a lieutenant commander named Drake. Sir, she said quietly. The wind is gusting hard from the northwest. It is going to push your rounds significantly at this range. Hargrove did not even turn. My shooters know how to read wind, Miss Blackwood. Yes, sir, but the conditions are changing rapidly. The sensors are showing. His head snapped toward her. Are you a qualified sniper instructor, Miss Blackwood? No, sir, but then I suggest you leave the shooting to the professionals and focus on your clipboard. He turned back to Drake. Ignore her. Civilians panic over every little weather change. Kira felt heat flood her face, but she walked back to her station. Reeves caught her eye, shook his head slightly. Not worth it, his expression said. The first shooter took position. Drake, settling behind the Barrett with practiced ease. Kira watched him set up, saw him check the wind flag at 500 meters, but not the one at 1,500. Saw him make his calculations based on incomplete data. She wanted to say something. Kept her mouth shut instead. Drake fired. The sound cracked across the valley, echoing off the mountains. Through the spotting scope, Kira saw the impact. 2 feet left the target, caught by the wind he had not properly calculated for. Hargrove's jaw tightened. Reset. Drake, adjust your windage. 3 more shooters tried. 3 more misses. each round pushed left by the gusting crosswind. General Thornhill's expression went from interested to concerned. The colonels were whispering to each other. "This is unacceptable," Hargrove said, his voice tight. "Check the equipment. Something is off with the scopes." Kira bit her tongue. The equipment was fine. The problem was the wind reading, the failure to account for the valley effect that channeled gusts unpredictably at long range. But she had already been dismissed once today. She was not about to volunteer for another public humiliation. The fifth shooter lined up. Hargrove stood behind him, arms crossed, his entire body radiating tension. "This one has to hit," he muttered. Kira watched the wind flag at 2,000 meters snap hard to the east. She opened her mouth, closed it. The shot rang out. Another miss. General Thornhill glanced at her watch. "Commander Hargrove, perhaps we should discuss the technical challenges you are experiencing." Hargrove's face had gone red. "There are no technical challenges, General. My men are the best long-range shooters in the naval special warfare community. This is an equipment issue." He turned on Kira. When was this equipment last calibrated?" 2 days ago, sir," Kira said evenly. "All scopes and rifles were verified to standard." "Well, clearly something is wrong with your verification process." Master Sergeant Reeves stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, I checked the equipment myself this morning. Everything is within spec." Hargrove glared at him, then back at Kira. "Then what is your professional opinion, Miss Blackwood? Since you seem to have thoughts on everything." The sarcasm was thick enough to cut. Kira felt every eye on the range turned toward her. Captain Vance looked sympathetic but silent. General Thornhill watched with an expression of clinical interest. "The wind is gusting unpredictably through the valley," Kira said carefully. "At 2,000 meters, even small variations create significant deflection. Your shooters are compensating for the flags at 500,000, but not accounting for the channeling effect at 1,500 through 2,000. Hargrove stared at her. "The channeling effect." "Yes, sir. The mountain terrain creates—" "I know what a channeling effect is," he snapped. "What I do not know is why a civilian safety officer thinks she understands long-range ballistics better than Navy SEAL snipers. I'm just reporting what the sensors show, sir." Hargrove turned to General Thornhill. "General, I apologize for this embarrassment. Give me 30 minutes to diagnose the actual problem, and we will have successful demonstrations for you." Thornhill nodded slowly. 30 minutes, Commander." The general walked back toward the observation area with her colonels. Vance followed, leaving Hargrove to rage at his team in low, vicious tones. Kira returned to the control station, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack through her ribs. Reeves joined her, checking the wind sensors himself. "You are right about the channeling," he said quietly. "I have seen it before on ranges like this. Wind acts different in valleys. Not my place to say it, apparently." He gave her a long look. "You know a lot about long-range shooting for safety officer." "I read the manuals," Kira said, not meeting his eyes. The 30 minutes stretched into an hour. Hargrove had his team checking and rechecking every piece of equipment, adjusting scopes, testing different ammunition loads. Kira watched him work, saw the desperation building behind his commands. This demonstration meant something to him. Reputation, maybe. Promotion. The approval of a 3-star general. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Lieutenant Brianna Coughlin appeared at the control station, carrying a tablet. She was Marine Corps, attached to Ridgecrest as a logistics officer, and one of the few women in a senior position on base. "Hey, Kira. Captain Vance wants updated wind readings sent to his tablet." Kira pulled up the data, transferred it. Coughlin lingered, watching the activity at the firing line. "Hargrove is losing it," Coughlin said. "I've seen him around. He does not handle failure well. Nobody does." "True, but some people handle it worse than others." Coughlin glanced at her. "He is wrong, you know. About the equipment. About you." Kira did not respond. What was there to say? Hargrove called his team back to the firing line. 6 shooters this time, as if quantity would solve the problem quality could not. Drake took position again, his jaw set. The wind had calmed slightly, dropping to a steadier 12 knots. "Maybe this time," Reeves muttered. Drake fired. The round hit low and left, missing by 18 inches. Hargrove exploded. This is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. He wheeled on Kira. You, get over here. Kira walked to the firing line, her legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. Explain to me, Hargrove said, his voice dangerous and quiet, how my shooters, who have confirmed kills in combat environments, who train 300 days a year, are missing targets that should be routine. Sir, the conditions, no. He cut her off with a slashing hand gesture. I do not want to hear about conditions. I want to hear about your incompetence, about how you have failed to maintain this facility properly. The equipment is functioning correctly, sir. Then what is the problem? The problem is that you're not listening, Kira thought. The problem is that pride matters more to you than accuracy. The problem is that you would rather blame everyone else than admit the wind is beating you today. She said none of that. Instead, she said, Sir, if I could suggest adjusting your holdover calculations to account for. Hargrove stepped closer. His eyes were ice. Let me make something very clear, Miss Blackwood. You are a civilian contractor. You have no military experience, no combat record, and no business telling Navy SEALs how to do their jobs. If you cannot provide competent range support, I will have you removed and replaced with someone who can. Kira felt something cold settle in her stomach. Yes, sir. Now get back to your station and stay there. She walked back, feeling General Thornhill's eyes on her back, feeling the weight of Hargrove's contempt, feeling the old familiar rage building in her chest, the kind she had spent 2 years learning to suppress. Reeves was waiting when she got back to the control station. He said nothing, just handed her a bottle of water. She drank it without tasting, watching Hargrove organize another attempt. This time they moved to 1,800 meters. Closer range, better odds. Smart tactical decision, even if it felt like retreat. 7 shooters lined up, each with a Barrett that probably cost more than Kira made in 6 months. The first 3 shots grouped better. Still not perfect, but close enough that Hargrove visibly relaxed. He walked along the firing line like a general inspecting troops, offering corrections and encouragement. Better, he called out. Much better. This is the standard I expect. General Thornhill returned to the observation area, her expression neutral. Kira checked her sensors again. The wind had dropped to 8 knots, steady from the northwest. Manageable conditions. Anyone with basic training could hit at 1,800 in this weather. The 4th shooter fired. Dead center. Hargrove actually smiled. That is what I'm talking about. That is SEAL precision. He looked directly at Kira when he said it, making sure she understood. See, Miss Blackwood? When the equipment is working properly, my men do not miss. Kira bit the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste copper. Said nothing. The demonstration continued. More hits than misses now. Hargrove was rebuilding his reputation shot by shot, explaining to General Thornhill about adaptability and problem-solving under pressure, spinning the disaster into a teaching moment about overcoming adversity. Staff Sergeant Cruz Mendoza approached the control station. He was the SEAL who had looked back at her yesterday, the one with thoughtful eyes. Can I get a wind reading update? He asked. Kira pulled up the current data, showed him the tablet. Mendoza studied it longer than necessary. You called it right, he said quietly. About the channeling effect. I have shot in Afghanistan, in mountains like this. The wind does exactly what you said. She glanced at him. Not my place to say it, apparently. Mendoza's mouth twitched. Hargrove is, well, he has strong opinions about women in tactical roles. Had a sister who washed out of SEAL training, or tried to enter it. The Navy does not let women in the program yet, but she wanted to be the first. He took it personally when she could not meet the standards. So now every woman is incompetent. Something like that. Mendoza looked back at the firing line. For what it is worth, you clearly know your stuff. I noticed how you were reading the conditions. Most safety officers just check boxes. I take my job seriously. Yeah, he studied her face. Feels like more than that, though. Before she could respond, Reeve called out. Kira, we have got a problem with the spotting scope at 2,000 meters. Display is flickering. She grabbed her toolkit, grateful for the interruption. Mendoza watched her go, his expression unreadable. The spotting scope was one of the high-end digital models, connected to tablets that let observers track shots in real time. Kira climbed the ladder to the observation platform, opened the housing. The connection was loose, probably vibration from the morning shooting. Simple fix. She had the rifle in her hands before she realized what she was doing. Someone had left a Barrett propped against the platform rail, probably Drake's from earlier. The weight was immediately familiar. 30 pounds that should have felt awkward, but instead felt like coming home. Her hands moved automatically, checking the chamber, the magazine, the scope settings. Muscle memory that 2 years had not erased. She brought it to her shoulder, settled into the position that her body still knew, and looked through the scope at the target 2,000 meters downrange. The wind was quartering now, 9 knots. Elevation at this range would require 4.2 mils adjustment. Coriolis effect negligible at this distance and latitude. Temperature 78 degrees, barometric pressure standard. The calculations rolled through her mind like breathing. What are you doing? Kira nearly dropped the rifle. Reeves stood at the top of the ladder, staring at her. The scope was, I did not mean to. You handle that weapon like you have done it before, Reeves said slowly. A lot before. Kira set the Barrett down carefully, her hands shaking again. I should not have touched it. I was fixing the spotting scope, and it was just there in Blackwood. His voice was gentle. Where did you learn to shoot like that? I did not. I do not. The way you checked that rifle. The way you settled into position. That was not recreational shooting. That was professional. Kira climbed down the ladder without answering. Her heart was hammering. Stupid, she told herself. Stupid, stupid, stupid. 2 years of keeping her head down, and she almost blew it over a moment of muscle memory. Reeves followed her down. He did not push, just watched her with that careful expression. At the firing line, Hargrove was setting up for a final demonstration. 2,200 meters. His best shooter. One perfect shot to end the day on a high note and erase the morning's embarrassment. Drake took position. The crowd went quiet. General Thornhill leaned forward slightly. The shot echoed across the valley. Through the spotting scope, Kira saw the impact. 3 feet right at target. Hargrove's face went white, then red. He grabbed the radio. Did anyone check the wind at 20 to 100? Steady at 10 knots northwest. The observer called back. That is impossible. Drake never misses at this range. He spun, looking for someone to blame, and his eyes landed on Kira. Did you sabotage the equipment? The accusation was so absurd that Kira actually laughed. A short, sharp sound she could not hold back. Hargrove's expression went murderous. You think this is funny? Hargrove advanced on her, his voice rising. You think sabotaging a demonstration for a 3-star general is amusing? Sir, I did not sabotage anything. Kira kept her voice level, but something in her chest was tightening. The old feeling. The one that came before bad things happened. Then explain why my best shooter, a man with 43 confirmed kills, just missed a routine shot. Because he did not account for the thermal shift, Kira said. The sun has been heating the valley floor for 3 hours. The air density changed. His elevation calculation was based on morning conditions. The words came out before she could stop them. Technical. Precise. The kind of analysis that came from experience, not from reading manuals. Hargrove stared at her. Thermal shift. Yes, sir. At this range, temperature gradients create. I know what thermal shift is. His voice was dangerous now. What I want to know is how a civilian safety officer knows about it. Kira felt the ground shifting under her feet. Reeves was watching her intently. Mendoza had moved closer. Even General Thornhill was paying attention now, her sharp eyes fixed on this exchange. It is basic physics, sir. Basic physics. Hargrove laughed, the sound bitter. Right? Basic physics. Tell me something, Miss Blackwood. Where exactly did you learn basic physics as it applies to long-range precision shooting? I read extensively. What branch were you in? The question hit like a punch. Kira felt her breath catch. I was not military, sir. Do not lie to me. Hargrove stepped closer. Everything about you screams military. The way you stand. The way you talk. That jacket you wear every day with a faded unit patch you think nobody notices. Kira's hand moved instinctively to her father's jacket. The patch was so faded it was almost invisible. She had thought it was invisible. "It was my father's," she said quietly. "Was he a sniper?" "He was a Marine." "And what did he teach you about shooting?" "Nothing. He died when I was 12. The lie came easily. Easier than the truth. Her father had taught her plenty before he died. Taught her to love shooting the way other fathers taught their daughters to love music or art. But that was sports shooting, competition shooting. Not this. Never this. Hargrove was not satisfied. "You're hiding something, Blackwood. I can see it. You know too much. You notice too much." Captain Vance finally intervened. "Commander, perhaps we should focus on completing the demonstration. The General's time is limited." General Thornhill spoke for the first time in an hour. "Actually, Captain, I would like to hear more of Miss Blackwood's analysis. Her observations have been accurate." Kira wanted to disappear, wanted to be anywhere but here, under the eyes of a 3-star general and a commander who was actively trying to destroy her. "Miss Blackwood," the general continued, "you mentioned thermal shift. What other factors would affect a shot at 2,200 meters?" "Ma'am, I'm just a safety officer. Humor me." Kira swallowed hard. "Wind velocity and direction at multiple points along the trajectory. Air density based on temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure. Coriolis effect becomes significant at extreme ranges. Spin drift from the rifling. Elevation angle if shooting uphill or downhill. Even the rotation of the Earth matters at the longest distances." The silence that followed was absolute. "How long would it take you to calculate all those factors?" Thornhill asked. "Ma'am, for a 2,000-meter shot, how long to run those calculations?" Several minutes with a ballistic calculator." "Without a calculator?" Kira's mouth went dry. 30 seconds. Maybe less." Thornhill looked at Hargrove. "Commander, I think we have been asking the wrong person for shooting advice." Hargrove's jaw worked. "She is a civilian, General. So you have said." Repeatedly. Thornhill turned back to Kira. "Miss Blackwood, I am curious. If you're taking the shot Drake just missed, what adjustments would you make?" "General, I really should not. It is a simple question." Kira closed her eyes, saw the shot in her mind, felt the calculations flowing like water. Add 0.6 mils for the thermal gradient. Hold 0.8 mils right for the crosswind that is building as the valley heats. Decrease elevation by 0.2 to account for the lower air density. Thornhill smiled. "That is remarkably specific." "It is just math, ma'am." "Commander Hargrove," Thornhill said, "I would like Miss Blackwood to observe your next attempt closely, and I would like you to consider her recommendations." Hargrove looked like he had swallowed glass. "General, with respect, I cannot ask my men to take tactical advice from an unqualified civilian." "Then consider in order," Thornhill said pleasantly. "From me to you." The next shooter was a lieutenant named Foster. Young, competent, but clearly nervous with everyone watching. Kira stood next to Reeves at the spotting scope, feeling Hargrove's hatred radiating from 10 feet away. Foster settled into position, checked his scope, started his breathing routine. The wind shifted. Kira saw it on the flags at 1,500 meters. "Hold off another half mil right," she called out. Wind just picked up. Foster adjusted without questioning. Hargrove said nothing, but his hands clenched into fists. Thermal mirage at the target, Kira continued, watching through the spotting scope. Coming up from the ground. Add 0.3 mils elevation. Foster adjusted again. "Send it," Kira said softly. The shot cracked across the valley. Through the scope, Kira watched the round fly. Watched it track true. Watched it punch through the center of the target, 2,200 meters downrange. Perfect hit. The observation area erupted in applause. General Thornhill was smiling. Captain Vance looked relieved. Hargrove looked like he wanted to murder someone. Kira felt sick. Hargrove dismissed his team for lunch. The general and her colonels went back to the admin building with Captain Vance. Kira tried to leave, but Hargrove's voice stopped her cold. "Miss Blackwood, a word." She turned. Hargrove stood alone at the firing line now, his arms crossed, his face carved from stone. "You made me look like a fool in front of a 3-star general. he said. Sir, I was just answering her questions. No, you were showing off. Proving something. He stepped closer. I do not know what your game is, but I know you're lying about who you are. Nobody calls shots like that without serious training. I told you I read. Stop. Just stop. Hargrove's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it worse. I have spent 20 years in special operations. I have trained snipers all over the world. I know what real skill looks like, and you have it. So either you come clean about your background, or I make it my personal mission to find out. Kira felt her hands trembling. There is nothing to find out, sir. We will see about that. Hargrove turned and walked away. Kira stood alone on the empty range, the wind picking up around her. Her father's jacket felt heavier than usual. She pulled it tighter, trying to stop the shaking that had nothing to do with cold. Reeves found her 20 minutes later, still standing in the same spot. You should eat something, he said. Not hungry. He waited. Finally said, I pulled your personnel file. Kira's stomach dropped. And? It is thin. Too thin. Started working here 11 months ago. Before that, nothing. Like you did not exist. Lots of people have gaps in their employment. Not like this. Reeves leaned against the control station. I also noticed something else. Your emergency contact is listed as Dr. Sarah Chun at the VA hospital in Los Angeles. VA is for veterans. She is a friend, right? He looked at her steadily. Look, I do not know what you are running from. Do not care, really. But Hargrove is not going to let this go. He is the kind of man who destroys things he does not understand. I know. So maybe it is time to stop hiding. Kira laughed bitterly. You think I am hiding? I am surviving. There's a difference. Before Reeves could respond, Lieutenant Coughlin appeared. Captain Vance wants to see you, she said to Kira. Both of you. In his office. Vance's office was small and cluttered with 20 years of accumulated military paperwork. He sat behind his desk, looking older and more tired than usual. General Thornhill sat in the guest chair. Kira's pulse spiked. Sit down, Vance said. They sat. Kira kept her eyes on the floor. Miss Blackwood, the general said, that was an impressive display this morning. Very impressive. Where did you train? Various places, ma'am. That is not an answer. With respect, ma'am, my background is not relevant to my current position. Thornhill leaned forward. Let me be direct. I need to know if you have any classified training or clearances that would prevent me from using you as a consultant. Kira's head snapped up. A consultant? I am expanding the long-range sniper program. We need qualified instructors who understand the nuances you demonstrated today. People who can teach what Commander Hargrove's team is clearly missing. I am not qualified to teach Navy SEALs. You just proved otherwise. Thornhill's voice was firm. Look, I understand privacy. I respect it. But if you have skills this country needs, I need to know about them. Kira felt the walls closing in. Vance was watching her with something like sympathy. Reeves looked curious, but not judgmental. The general just waited, patient as stone. I cannot do this, Kira said finally. I am sorry, ma'am, but I cannot. Cannot or will not. Both. Why? Because I left that life behind. Because people died. Because I see their faces every time I close my eyes, and I will not go back to being that person. She had not meant to say any of that. The words came out like breaking glass. Thornhill was quiet for a long moment. What unit? She asked softly. Classified. Even the unit designation? Especially that. The general nodded slowly. All right. I will not push. But Miss Blackwood, let me tell you something. Running does not make the ghosts go away. It just means you face them alone. Kira stood abruptly. Am I dismissed, ma'am? Thornhill sighed. Yes, you are dismissed. Kira walked out, her legs unsteady. Behind her, she heard the general say to Vance, find out who she was. Quietly. No official channels. I want to know what we are dealing with. The afternoon demonstration was supposed to start at 1400 hours. Kira did not go. She sat in her truck in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, trying to remember the breathing exercises Dr. Chun had taught her. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. It was not working. Someone knocked on her window. Mendoza. She rolled it down. Hargrove is asking for you, he said. Tell him I'm sick. He knows you are in the parking lot. Look, I will level with you. He is planning something. I do not know what, but he has been on the phone with someone at SOCOM for the last hour. SOCOM, Special Operations Command. Kira closed her eyes. He is trying to find out who I am. Probably. Mendoza hesitated. For what it is worth, I think you earn the right to your secrets. But Hargrove does not see it that way. He sees a woman who embarrassed him, and he wants revenge. What would you do? Me? I would face it, Hedon. Take away his power by owning your story. But that is easy for me to say. I do not know what your story is. No, Kira said. You do not. She got out of the truck. Walked back to the range. Hargrove was waiting at the firing line with a Barrett and a smile that made her blood run cold. Miss Blackwood, he called out. So glad you could join us. I have been thinking about the general suggestion. If you are such an expert, you should demonstrate. Show us how it is really done. The challenge hung in the air like a blade. Everyone on the range stopped what they were doing. Reeves looked alarmed. Mendoza shook his head slightly. Even Drake, standing near the equipment table, seemed uncomfortable. Sir, I am a safety officer, not a shooter, Kira said. But you give such excellent advice. Hargrove's smile widened. Surely someone with your knowledge can back it up with performance. Unless, of course, you were just guessing earlier. General Thornhill had returned. She stood with Captain Vance, watching this confrontation unfold. Kira could walk away right now, could refuse, could maintain her cover, but Hargrove would not stop. He would dig and dig until he found what he was looking for. And once anyone knew, the questions would never end. The pressure would never stop. What distance? She heard herself ask. Hargrove's eyes glittered. Your choice. Show us what you can do. Kira looked at the Barrett on the shooting platform. 30 pounds of precision death. She had not touched one in combat configuration for 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days. Not since the day her spotter died. His name was Marcus Webb, 23 years old, engaged to a teacher from Ohio. He bled out in her arms while she was calling for medevac that came 20 minutes too late. She could still feel his blood on her hands sometimes. 3,000 meters, she said quietly. The range went silent. 3,000 meters was extreme distance. Olympic-level difficulty, even in perfect conditions. The kind of shot that made careers or ended them. Hargrove's smile faltered slightly. 3,000. You're sure? Yes, sir. All right, then. Hargrove gestured to the platform. Show us. Kira walked to the Barrett. Her hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. Something cold and familiar was settling over her, the way it always did when the shooting started. The part of her that turned off everything except the math and the wind and the target. She picked up the rifle, felt its weight distribute across her body, checked the chamber, the magazine, the scope. Muscle memory flowing like water. She had fired this exact model 417 times in combat. Knew its quirks, knew how the trigger broke, knew the half-second delay between squeeze and recoil. The memories came flooding back. Not Marcus, not yet, but the others. The missions, the targets that were not paper circles, but human beings who fell when she calculated correctly. The weight of all those deaths pressing down until she could barely breathe. Dr. Chen's voice in her head. You are not there. You are here. You are safe. But she was not safe. She was walking back into the fire. Kira settled into position behind the Barrett. The scope settled against her eye socket like it had never left. Through the glass, she could see the target 3,000 meters downrange. A tiny square of paper that looked impossible from here. Wind, she said. 12 knots northwest, gusting to 15, Reeves called back. His voice was tight with worry. Kira felt the wind on her face. Listen to it. At 3,000 meters, the bullet would be in flight for nearly 4 seconds. For seconds for the wind to push it. For seconds for gravity to drag it down. For seconds for the Earth's rotation to matter. Temperature? 82 degrees, Reeves said. Barometric pressure? 30.12. The numbers flowed through her mind. Elevation compensation for the distance. Windage for the gusting crosswind. Coriolis drift for a shot this long at this latitude. The calculations that had once been second nature, that she had spent 2 years trying to forget, came back instantly. She adjusted the scope, checked her breathing, found the rhythm that her body still remembered. Marcus had always counted for her. Breathe in 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 2, 3, 4. His voice steady and calm, keeping her centered when everything else was chaos. She was alone now, had to count for herself. In 2, 3, 4. Her finger found the trigger. 50 pounds of pressure. She knew exactly how it would break. Hold 2, 3, 4. Through the scope, the target wavered in the heat mirage. She adjusted for it without thinking. Saw the wind flag at 2,000 meters snap left. Compensated. Out 2, 3, 4. The shot was between heartbeats. The place where everything went silent. Where nothing existed except her and the target and the bullet between them. She squeezed. The Barrett roared. The recoil slammed into her shoulder with familiar violence. The scope jumped. She rode it, brought it back to target, watched. For seconds felt like forever. The bullet struck. Dead center. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Kira stood up from the platform. Her legs were shaking again. She set the Barrett down carefully, like it might explode. Lucky shot, Hargrove said. His voice was strained. General Thornhill walked to the spotting scope, looked through it herself, looked at Kira, then looked at Hargrove. Commander, that was not luck. That was the best long-range shot I have ever witnessed. She could have been guessing, Hargrove insisted. Blind luck. Then she should do it again, Thornhill said. Miss Blackwood, would you mind? Kira felt nausea rising. Once was surviving. Twice was proving something. She did not want to prove anything. She wanted to disappear. But every eye was on her. Hargrove's face was pale now, his confidence cracking. He had challenged her, thinking she would fail, thinking he could use her failure to destroy her. She had taken that weapon away from him. Now, she had to finish it. 3,200 meters, Kira said. Her voice sounded like it came from someone else. That is beyond standard range capacity, Vance said. I know. Kira returned to the platform, picked up the Barrett again. This time, the memories were sharper. Marcus telling jokes to keep her calm. The sand under her boots in places she could not name. The faces in her scope that haunted her sleep. She forced it all down, found the cold place again, ran the calculations. 3,200 meters. The target was barely visible even through the scope. At this distance, she was shooting at something smaller than a postage stamp from over 2 miles away. The kind of shot that should not be possible. But she had done impossible before. Wind velocity? She asked. 14 knots, gusting to 17, Reeves said. He sounded like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Shifting northeast. Kira felt the wind pattern. It was chaotic at this distance, channeling through the valley in ways that made prediction more art than science. She would have to read the mirage, trust her instinct as much as her calculations. Temperature gradient between here and target. Reeves checked his sensors, rising 3 degrees over the distance. Thermal layer at approximately 2,000 meters. The thermal layer would bend the bullet's path. Not much, but at 3,200 meters, not much meant missing by feet. She adjusted her elevation compensation, added mils for the crosswind, factored in the increasing Coriolis effect at extreme range. Her breathing had steadied now, the old rhythm taking over. Marcus's voice was gone, replaced by her own internal count. She did not need him anymore, had not needed him for a long time, but she still heard him sometimes in the quiet moments. This one is for you, Webb, she thought. Lieutenant Coughlin had moved closer to the platform. She watched Kira with an expression of awe mixed with something else. Recognition, maybe, the understanding that she was witnessing something extraordinary. What unit were you really with? Coughlin asked quietly. Kira did not answer. She was sinking into the shot now, into the place where words did not matter, where nothing mattered except the wind and the distance and the tiny target that was waiting for her. She adjusted her position. The Barrett settled into her shoulder like it belonged there. Through the scope, she could see the heat waves dancing above the desert floor, the mirage that would make aiming by sight alone impossible. She had to aim through it, into it, trusting the distortion would bend her bullet exactly where she needed it to go. Hargrove was pacing behind her. She could feel his anxiety like a physical presence. He knew what was happening now. knew that whatever happened next would define how everyone saw him. If she missed, he could claim she got lucky before. If she hit, he would be exposed as a fraud who could not recognize talent when it was standing right in front of him. Kira did not care about his reputation, did not care about proving anything. She cared about the shot, only the shot. Win flag at 3,000 just snapped hard right, Mendoza called out. He had moved to the extreme observation point without being asked. His voice carried the respect of someone who understood what she was attempting. Kira adjusted, added another half-mil windage. The calculations were piling up now. 17 different factors affecting the bullet's flight. Most shooters would use a computer. She was doing it in her head, the way she had always done it. Spotter would call Mirage at this point, Reeves said. He was not criticizing, just observing. The professional recognizing the absence of a critical element. Mirage is running right to left, Kira said. Heavy waves at 1,500 meters. Lighter at 2,000. Almost still at 3,000. It will push the round left approximately 0.4 mils. How can you possibly know that? Drake asked. He sounded genuinely curious now, the earlier hostility gone. Practice, Kira said simply. She settled deeper into the stock, found her natural point of aim, let her breathing slow until her heart rate dropped below 60 beats per minute. The world narrowed to the scope picture. Everything else faded away. Captain Vance had pulled out his phone, was recording this. Smart, Kira thought distantly. This was the kind of shot that people would not believe without video evidence. General Thornhill stood absolutely still. She understood what she was watching. A master at work. The kind of skill that came from years of practice and natural talent combined into something that transcended training. Send it when ready, the general said softly. Kira found the place between heartbeats. The silence where her body and the rifle became one thing, where the distance collapsed and the target felt close enough to touch. She squeezed the trigger. The Barrett roared. The recoil drove into her shoulder. The scope jumped, and she followed it, bringing it back down, watching the bullet fly. For 0.3 seconds of flight time at this distance. For 0.3 seconds where wind and gravity and chance could push the round off target. For 0.3 seconds that felt like standing on the edge of cliff. The bullet struck. Perfect center mass. The sound that erupted from the observers was something between a cheer and a gasp. Reeves was shaking his head in disbelief. Mendoza was grinning. Even Drake looked impressed. Hargrove stood frozen, his face ashen. General Thornhill walked to Kira. She moved slowly, deliberately, the way people move around something dangerous and powerful. "What is your name?" the general asked. "Your real name." "Kira Blackwood is my real name, ma'am." "What unit?" "I cannot tell you that." "Cannot or will not." "The unit is classified above your clearance level, ma'am." No disrespect intended. Thornhill's eyebrows rose. Above a 3-star general's clearance. That is a very short list of units. She studied Kira's face. "How many combat deployments?" 7. "How many confirmed kills?" Kira was silent. The general waited. "I stopped counting at 50, Kira finally said. Her voice was barely audible. The range had gone completely quiet. Even wind seemed to have stilled. "What is your longest confirmed kill in combat?" Thornhill asked. 3,247 meters, Kira said. The number she had been carrying for 2 years. The number that defined the worst day of her life. In Helmand Province. Operation Copper Canyon. Taliban commander who was about to execute 12 civilians. "I took the shot from a position that was supposed to be impossible. My spotter died getting us to that position. The shot saved those civilians. But it cost me Marcus Webb." Her voice broke on his name. Thornhill nodded slowly. "Operation Copper Canyon. I remember reading about that. Heavy redactions. Most of it is still classified. But I remember the outcome. 12 civilians extracted safely. 1 enemy commander eliminated at extreme range. And 1 American casualty during exfiltration. That casualty was Webb," Kira said. "He was 23 years old." The silence stretched out across the range like a physical thing. Kira stood beside the Barrett, her hands still steady on the outside while everything inside her was collapsing. She had said Marcus's name out loud. had not spoken it in 2 years. It felt like tearing open a wound that had never properly healed. Commander Hargrove finally found his voice. "You're telling me you were some kind of secret special operations sniper?" "I'm telling you nothing, sir." Kira's voice was flat. "I answered the general's questions. That is all. You lied to me. To everyone here. I never lied. I just did not volunteer information. That is the same thing." "No, sir, it is not." Kira turned to face him fully now. "You assumed I was incompetent because I am a woman and a civilian contractor. You dismissed every piece of advice I gave. You humiliated me in front of your team and the general. I did not lie. You just refused to see the truth." Hargrove's face went crimson. "How dare you, Commander?" General Thornhill's voice cut through his anger like a blade. "Stand down." Hargrove closed his mouth, but his eyes promised that this was not over. Thornhill turned back to Kira. "Miss Blackwood, I need to know, are you still cleared for classified operations?" "My clearance is current, ma'am. I maintain it as a condition of my separation agreement. So you could theoretically return to active operations." "Theoretically." Kira's hands were shaking again now. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind exhaustion and the familiar weight of memory. "But I will not." "Why not?" "Because I cannot trust myself not to freeze at the wrong moment. Because I see Marcus bleeding out every time I close my eyes. Because the last time I took a shot that mattered, the person I cared about most died for it." She had not meant to say that either. The words kept escaping, pulled out by the intensity of Thornhill's gaze and the release of 2 years of holding everything inside. Captain Vance stepped forward. "General, perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private." "Agreed." Thornhill gestured toward the admin building. "Miss Blackwood, you are coming with us." "Commander Hargrove, you are dismissed. Take your team back to quarters." "General, I should be part of this discussion," Hargrove protested. "You should be reflecting on your conduct today," Thornhill said coldly. "And considering how your assumptions nearly cost this program a valuable asset." "Dismissed, Commander." Hargrove left. His team followed, but Mendoza caught Kira's eye as he passed. He nodded once, a gesture of respect. Drake did the same. Even among SEALs, what she had just done commanded acknowledgement. Reeves fell in a step beside Kira as they walked to the admin building. "That was the most incredible shooting I have ever seen," he said quietly. "And I have seen Olympic champions." "It was just math," Kira replied. "No, it was art. Art and math and something else. Something you were born with. Maybe, or maybe it is just what happens when you practice something 10,000 times because your life depends on it." They entered Vance's office. The general took the chair behind the desk without asking. Vance did not seem to mind. Lieutenant Coughlin had joined them, along with Reeves. This was going to be an official debrief, Kira realized. Her cover was completely blown now. "Let's start with the basics," Thornhill said, pulling out a tablet. Full name: Kira Marie Blackwood. Date of birth: April 7th, 1997. Service branch and dates: United States Army. Enlisted May 2015. Separated under medical discharge November 2023. Medical discharge: physical or psychological? Psychological, Kira said. PTSD. Severe, with dissociative episodes and survivor's guilt. Thornhill made notes. Unit designation: still classified, ma'am. I can have that declassified within the hour. Then you will have your answer within the hour. But I will not speak it here without proper authorization. The general smiled slightly. Fair enough. Number of deployments: 7. Iraq twice. Afghanistan 5 times. Total confirmed kills: 53, Kira said. That I am certain of. Possibly more where confirmation was not possible. Record shot distance: 3,247 meters. Helmand Province. Operation Copper Canyon. August 16, 2023. And your spotter on that operation: Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb. He died during exfiltration when our position was compromised. He took 3 rounds covering my withdrawal. I was extracted by helicopter 6 hours later. He was already gone when they brought him out. Kira's voice remained steady, but tears were running down her face now. She did not wipe them away. Just let them fall. You blame yourself, Thornhill said. It was not a question. I took too long setting up the shot. Marcus kept telling me we had to move, that we were too exposed. But I waited for perfect conditions. For the one moment when wind and light and distance aligned. I got my shot, and he paid for my perfectionism with his life. From what I read in the after-action report, Lieutenant Coughlin said gently, the mission commander stated that without that shot, all 12 civilians would have been executed. Your delay saved their lives. Marcus did not care about my math, Kira said bitterly. He cared about getting home to his fiancée, about the wedding they had planned for October, about the life he was supposed to have. You did your job, Reeves said. He did his. That is how it works in combat. Knowing that does not make it easier. No, Thornhill agreed. It does not. She set down her tablet. Miss Blackwood, I'm going to be direct. I need shooters like you. The program I am building requires instructors who can teach at the highest level. People who have been there, done it, survived it. I cannot go back, Kira said. I physically cannot. My therapist, Dr. Chun, she's been working with me for 2 years just to get me functional, to get me where I can hold a job and sleep through the night occasionally. Going back to that world would destroy everything we have built. I'm not asking you to deploy, Thornhill said. I am asking you to teach. Here, at Ridgecrest or another training facility. Controlled environment. No combat. Just passing on what you know to the next generation. They would ask questions about Marcus, about my deployments, about kills and missions, and all the things I'm trying to forget. Then we make it clear those questions are off limits, Vance said. We structure the position so you teach technique and theory. Nothing personal, nothing that triggers the trauma. Kira shook her head. You do not understand. Just being around the rifles, the ranges, the culture, it all brings it back. Today was the first time I've fired a weapon in 2 years. And now I'm going to have nightmares for a week. General Thornhill leaned back in her chair, studying Kira with those sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. What if we gave you time? Not tomorrow, not next month, but eventually, when you are ready. I do not know if I will ever be ready, ma'am. That is fair, but I want you to know the option exists. The general stood, signaling the meeting was ending. In the meantime, I'm going to recommend you receive formal recognition for your service. What you did today, what you did in Helmand Province, that deserves to be acknowledged. No, the word came out harder than Kira intended. No recognition. No ceremonies. No attention. Miss Blackwood, please, ma'am. I left that world so I could disappear. Recognition is the opposite of what I need. Thornhill studied her for a long moment. All right, no formal recognition. But understand that I will be including today's demonstration in my report. Your skills are too valuable to ignore. As long as my name stays out of it, I will do what I can. After the general left, Kira sat in the office with Vance and Reeves. Her body fell hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside and left just a shell. You did a brave thing today, Vance said quietly, speaking up about Webb, about your past. I did not mean to. It just came out. Sometimes that is when the truth needs to be told. When we stop, try to control it. Kira looked at her hands. They were not shaking anymore. Just empty. I should go home. Take tomorrow off, Vance said. Hell, take the rest of the week. You have earned it. She drove home in a daze. The apartment was small and bare, furnished with the minimum needed to exist. She had not bothered making it feel like home because she still was not sure where home was supposed to be. The army had been home for 8 years. Then Marcus died, and home became a place she could not return to. Dr. Chun called that evening. She always seemed to know when Kira was struggling. How are you doing? The therapist asked. I fired a rifle today. 2 perfect shots at extreme range. In front of a 3-star general and a Navy SEAL commander. Silence on the other end. Then, how do you feel? Like I stepped backward 2 years. Like everything we worked on just evaporated. Kira, Dr. Chun said gently, healing is not linear. You're going to have setbacks. Days that feel like you lost all your progress. But that does not mean the work we have done is gone. It just means you're human. I told him about Marcus. Said his name out loud. That is significant. How did it feel? Like dying. Like being cut open. But you survived it. You are still here. That matters. After the call ended, Kira stood in her kitchen, staring at nothing. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. She thought about Marcus, about the last thing he said to her. Take the shot, Kay. Do not wait for perfect. Just take it. But she had waited, had spent 47 seconds calculating and recalculating while he lay exposed. And in those 47 seconds, the enemy patrol had shifted position, had spotted their hide, had opened fire. Marcus had returned fire to cover her, had stayed up while she took the shot that would save 12 lives, had taken 3 rounds in the process. Center mass. No chance. She had killed the Taliban commander at 3,247 meters. A record shot. A miracle shot. A shot that would be written about in classified reports for years to come. And Marcus had bled out in the sand while she called for medevac. Kira poured a glass of water, drank it, poured another. The routine was important. Dr. Chun had taught her that. When everything feels out of control, find something you can control, even if it is just drinking water. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lieutenant Coughlin. Just wanted to check on you. What you did today was incredible. If you need anything, I am here. Kira stared at the message. Did not reply. Another text. This one from Reeves. Get some rest. Tomorrow is a new day. You're not alone in this. She set the phone down, walked to her bedroom, pulled Marcus's dog tags from the drawer where she kept them. They had sent her his personal effects 6 months after he died. Most of it went to his fiancée, but Sarah had given Kira the tags, said that Marcus would have wanted her to have them. Kira held the tags in her palm, felt the weight of them. The metal was cool against her skin. I'm sorry, Webb, she whispered. I am so sorry. The tags did not answer. They never did. She slept badly that night. The dreams came the way Dr. Chun had predicted. Marcus bleeding. The helicopter too far away. The sound of gunfire that would not stop. She woke at 3 in the morning, covered in sweat, her heart racing. The next morning, she called in sick. Then the day after that, Vance did not push, just told her to take the time she needed. On the 3rd day, Mendoza showed up at her apartment. He stood in the doorway, holding a bag from a local diner. Figured you might not be eating, he said. Mind if I come in? Kira let him in because it seemed easier than arguing. They sat at her small kitchen table. Mendoza unpacked breakfast sandwiches and coffee. Did not say anything, just ate. After a while, Kira ate too. Hargrove got reassigned. Mendoza said finally. General Thornhill pulled him from the program. He is being sent to a desk job at the Pentagon. Review board decided his conduct was unbecoming. Kira did not know how to feel about that. Good, I guess. His team is staying. We are being assigned new leadership. Someone who actually respects talent when they see it. Mendoza took a sip of coffee. Drake wanted me to tell you something. He said watching you shoot changed how he thinks about the craft. Said it reminded him why he became a sniper in the first place. Not for the kills, for the art of it. I am not an artist. I'm just someone who did a job. No, you are someone who did an impossible job and paid a price for it. That is different. Mendoza stood to leave. Look, I do not know what you are going through. Cannot pretend to understand. But know what I saw on that range. I saw someone who still has something to offer. When you are ready, if you're ever ready. After he left, Kira sat at the table for a long time. The coffee went cold. The sun moved across the floor. Her phone buzzed with messages she did not read. Finally, she picked up the dog tags again, held them up to the light. What would you tell me to do, Webb? She asked the empty room. The answer came from memory. Marcus laughing at her perfectionism, telling her that done was better than perfect. That life was not about waiting for ideal conditions. It was about making the best choice you could with what you had and living with the consequences. On the 4th day, Kira returned to Ridgecrest. She arrived early, before sunrise the way she always had. The range was empty and quiet. Peaceful almost. She stood at the control station, watching the light creep across the valley floor, and tried to remember why she had taken this job in the first place. Safety, anonymity, distance from the person she used to be. But that person had never really left. She had just been hiding. Captain Vance found her at the 1,000-meter line, checking wind sensors that did not need checking. Good to see you back, he said. No pressure. Just wanted you to know that. Thank you, sir. He hesitated, then pulled an envelope from his jacket. This came through classified channels yesterday. Addressed to you. I had to verify your clearance to accept it. Kira took the envelope. The seal was unbroken. Official Department of Defense markings. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a single page. Declassification approval for Operation Copper Canyon. Limited details, but enough. The mission objective. The civilian rescue. The enemy commander eliminated at extreme range. And, at the bottom, a commendation for Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb. Posthumous Bronze Star with Valor. Marcus got his recognition, Kira said softly. Finally, he earned it. Vance watched her read. There's more. A separate note from General Thornhill. Kira unfolded the second page. The general's handwriting was precise and clear. Miss Blackwood, I have reviewed the complete classified file on Operation Copper Canyon. Your actions that day saved 12 lives. SSG Webb's actions saved yours and completed the mission. Both of you are heroes. The fact that you carry his loss does not diminish what you accomplished together. It honors it. When you're ready to talk about next steps, I will be waiting. Respectfully, LTG Patricia Thornhill. Kira folded the papers carefully. Put them back in the envelope. I do not feel like a hero. Heroes rarely do, Vance said. The new SEAL team commander arrived that afternoon. Commander Rachel Desmond was compact and efficient, with gray streaking through black hair, pulled back in a tight bun. She found Kira at the range control station and extended her hand without hesitation. Miss Blackwood, I have heard remarkable things about your skills. Kira shook her hand. Mom, I understand my predecessor created a hostile work environment. I want you to know that will not continue. My team respects competence regardless of where it comes from. Thank you, ma'am. Desmond glanced at the Barrett on the equipment table. I also understand you hold the record for longest confirmed kill in modern combat. 3,247 meters. That is correct. I would very much like to learn how you did it. Not as your commander, as a fellow shooter who respects the craft. Something in Kira's chest loosened slightly. Maybe, she said, someday. That evening, Lieutenant Coughlin invited Kira to dinner off base. They sat in a quiet restaurant, and for the first time in years, Kira talked about Marcus. Not the death, the life, the jokes, the way he could defuse any tense situation with a stupid pun. The letters he wrote to his fiancée, Sarah, every single day, even when they were in positions so remote that mail would not go out for weeks. He sounded like he was a good man, Coughlin said. The best. Kira looked at her coffee. I have been so focused on the way he died that I forgot to remember the way he lived. That is the trauma talking. It makes us focus on the worst moments. But those moments do not define the whole story. No, it do not. Kira started seeing Dr. Chun twice a week again. Started working through the guilt that had been crushing her for 2 years. It did not disappear. Probably never would. But it became something she could carry instead of something that carried her. 3 weeks after the demonstration, General Thornhill returned to Ridgecrest. This time it was just her and Vance and Kira in the office. No pressure. No audience. I have a proposal, Thornhill said. Not an order. Not even a strong suggestion. Just something I want you to consider. Kira waited. I am building a new training program. Advanced long-range precision. The goal is to push the boundaries of what we think is possible. I need someone who has already done the impossible to help design it. You want me to teach? Not exactly. I want you to consult, design curriculum, develop training protocols. You would work with instructors, but not necessarily be one yourself. You can maintain as much distance as you need. And if I have bad days, days where I cannot function, then you take those days off. No questions asked. Your mental health is more valuable than any training program. Kira looked at Vance. What do you think, sir? I think you have been hiding from your talent for 2 years. I think Marcus would want you to use it. Not to honor his death, but to honor the partnership you had. The work you did together. The words hit hard. True words usually did. I need time to think, Kira said. Take all the time you need, Thornhill replied. That night, Kira drove to the coast. Stood on the beach, watching the waves crash in the darkness. The sound was rhythmic, calming. She pulled out her phone and called Sarah, Marcus's fiancée. They had not spoken in over a year. Sarah answered on the third ring. Her voice was cautious. Kira? Sarah. I want to talk to you about Marcus. They talked for 2 hours. Sarah was remarried now. Happy. She had kept Marcus's memory alive, but had not let it stop her from living. She told Kira something that changed everything. Marcus used to say you were the best shooter he ever worked with. That watching you was like watching someone speak a language nobody else understood. He was so proud to be your spotter. He never told me that, because you would have gotten all uncomfortable and changed the subject. Sarah laughed, and the sound was warm. Kira, Marcus died doing what he chose to do. He knew the risks. He accepted them. You need to accept them too. And you need to stop punishing yourself for surviving. I do not know how. Start by living. Really living. Not just existing. Use the gift you have. The one Marcus died protecting. After they hung up, Kira sat in her truck for a long time. Then she called General Thornhill. Ma'am, I have made a decision. Go ahead, Miss Blackwood. I will design your program. I will teach if needed. But I have conditions. Name them. I work at my own pace. I take mental health days when I need them. And we establish a scholarship fund in Marcus Webb's name for family members of fallen service members who want to pursue careers in military service. Done. All of it. Thornhill paused. Welcome back, Kira. Thank you, ma'am. But I'm not coming back. I am moving forward. There is a difference. Yes, the general said quietly. Yes, there is. 6 months later, Kira stood at the front of a classroom at Ridgecrest, facing 20 of the military's best shooters. SEALs, Rangers, Marine Scout snipers, and Army Special Forces. They watched her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. She understood. She looked like a civilian contractor. Young, quiet, unremarkable. Then Commander Desmond introduced her. This is Kira Blackwood, former Army Special Operations. 7 combat deployments. 53 confirmed kills. And the current world record holder for longest confirmed combat kill at 3,247 meters. The skepticism evaporated. Kira spent the next 4 hours teaching them what she knew. Not just the math, though that was important, but the art of reading wind by feeling. The discipline of breathing when your heart wanted to race. The patience to wait for the perfect moment even when every instinct screamed to shoot now. She told them about Marcus. About what it meant to trust your spotter with your life. About the partnership that made impossible shots possible. When she finished, the class stood and applauded. It was spontaneous and genuine, and it made her throat tight with emotion. Afterward, Staff Sergeant Mendoza approached her. That was the best instruction I have ever received, he said. You made it real. Not just technical, but human. That is the only way I know how to teach it, Kira replied. The scholarship fund in Marcus's name launched that spring. Sarah attended the ceremony. She and Kira stood together, looking at the memorial plaque that bore Marcus's name and face. He looked young in the photo, happy, alive in a way that made Kira's chest ache. He would have loved this, Sarah said, knowing that his legacy was helping others serve. I hope so. I know so. Sarah took Kira's hand. Thank you for remembering him this way. For making something good from something terrible. The first scholarship recipient was a young woman from Ohio. Her father had died in Iraq. She wanted to be a medic, wanted to save lives the way others had tried to save his. Kira met her briefly, saw the determination in her eyes. The same determination that had driven Kira to join the Army at 18. General Thornhill visited regularly to check on the program's progress. On one visit, she brought news. Commander Hargrove had requested retirement. The official reason was personal, but everyone knew the truth. His career had ended the day he underestimated Kira. How do you feel about that? Thornhill asked. I do not feel anything, Kira said honestly. His choices were his own. I just wish he had made different ones. That is remarkably mature. Not really. I just do not have the energy to hate people anymore. It takes too much. Reeves became Kira's closest colleague. They spent hours developing training protocols, testing equipment, pushing the boundaries of what long-range precision could achieve. He never asked about her classified missions, never pushed for details she could not share, just respected her knowledge and learned from her experience. One afternoon, they were testing a new scope configuration at 3,000 meters. Kira settled into position, ran her calculations, took the shot. Perfect center. You make it look easy, Reeves said. It is not. But practice helps. How much practice? 10,000 hours, give or take. Plus natural talent. Plus good instruction. Plus a willingness to fail until you learn. And a good spotter. Kira smiled. Yeah, a good spotter matters most of all. She still had bad days. Days when the memories were too sharp and the guilt too heavy. Dr. Chun helped her navigate those days. Taught her that healing was not about forgetting or even forgiving herself. It was about integrating the past into a life that could still move forward. On Marcus's birthday, Kira drove to the coast again, stood on the same beach where she had made her decision. She carried his dog tags in her pocket like always, but they felt lighter now, less like an anchor and more like a reminder. She pulled out her phone and recorded a message, posted it to the Scholarship Fund's website where Sarah would see it. Marcus Webb was my spotter and my friend. He died so that I could complete a mission that saved 12 lives. For a long time, I thought the best way to honor him was to hide from everything that reminded me of him. But I was wrong. The best way to honor him is to keep doing the work, to pass on what we learned together, to make sure that his sacrifice meant something beyond just that one day. She paused, looking at the ocean. If you're watching this and you're struggling with loss, with guilt, with the weight of memories that feel impossible to carry, know that you're not alone. Know that moving forward is not forgetting. It is remembering in a way that lets you live. Marcus would want that for me, and whoever you lost would want that for you. The video ended. Kira posted it. Within hours, it had hundreds of views. By the end of the week, thousands. People reached out with their own stories of loss and survival, of guilt and healing, of learning to carry the weight without letting it crush them. Lieutenant Coughlin messaged her. You started something important with that video. People need to hear that it is okay to struggle and okay to heal. I just said what I needed to hear 2 years ago, Kira replied. Exactly. The training program expanded. Kira found herself traveling to other bases, other facilities, sharing her knowledge with new groups of shooters. Each time, she told them about Marcus, made sure they understood that skill without wisdom was dangerous, that pride without humility was deadly, that the greatest shooters were not the ones with the most kills, but the ones who understood the weight of each one. One evening, she returned to Ridgecrest after a 2-week training session in North Carolina. Exhausted but satisfied, she walked out to Range 7, where it had all started, where Hargrove had dismissed her, where she had been forced to reveal herself, where everything had changed. The sun was setting, painting the valley in gold and purple. Kira stood at the firing line, holding Marcus's dog tags, and spoke to him the way she sometimes still did. We did okay, Webb. The program is working. The Scholarship Fund is helping people. I am helping people, and I am learning to live with what happened. Learning that your death was not my fault, even though I will always wish I had been faster. The wind picked up, warm against her face. I think you would be proud, not of the shots or the records or the recognition, but of the fact that I am still here, still fighting, still trying to make it all mean something. She closed her hand around the tags. If this story moved you, share your thoughts about your favorite moment, or tell us about someone you know who carried hidden scars and skills from their service. Drop a comment below. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And if you're struggling, know that there are people who understand. You are not alone in this. Kira stood there until the stars came out. Then she walked back to her truck, carrying Marcus's memory the way she always would. Not as a burden that crushed her, but as a light that guided her forward into whatever came next.